Welcome and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Evidently You're Unaware. I am your host, Andrea, also known as the Successful Diva. Evidently You're Unaware is a platform from which I dedicate the opportunity to shine light upon a variety of issues, topics, circumstances, and people who have influence over our lives. The content being delivered is intended to elevate your awareness and consciousness. Most importantly, bring relevance and thought provoking discussions not only into your peripheral view, but directly into your central vision. So let's get smarter. Think back. The 2016 general election produced results that were shocking to many of us, and I would dare say the world. The candidate who won didn't even have an acceptance speech prepared. That's what was said. And we can probably go with, now that we know what we know, that probably was true. Those of us who are engaged in the political landscape may wonder or even question how people could do what they do, say what they say, or behave in ways that go against the best interest of those who elected them to office. The outcome of the 2024 general election, fast forward, that outcome has only intensified those questions. Let's start with a few basic questions. Number one, why would 77,303,573 people vote for a 34 count convicted felon? Number two, why did 89,278,948 people think it was not worth showing up? Like, why even show up to vote? After seeing the boundaries of the law be stretched and broken from 2016 to 2020 to include 2 impeachments and an insurrection, why didn't lawmakers become more proactive in introducing and passing laws that would prohibit a future president from repeating the behavior that mimics that of a modern day mob boss? And number four, why else and what else would you expect from a 34 count convicted felon? What else would you expect them to do after receiving complete immunity from the Supreme Court? Yes, you expected him to lower the cost of groceries, specifically eggs. Well, to answer some of those questions, many may not want to be as blunt as what I'm about to share, but some of those answers are inherently obvious. Racism plays a part. Some aren't going to vote for a person of color, in particularly one that is African American, no matter how qualified they are. Discrimination is yet another reason. Some aren't going to vote for a woman, no matter how qualified they are. Party loyalty. Some aren't going to vote for an individual not affiliated with their party, no matter how unqualified the candidate is within their party. With all that being said, this episode is designed to shed light on a common theme being heard undoubtedly from some of the 77,303,573 people who voted for the 34 count convicted felon. Specifically, I will zero in on the lawmakers who used their congressional voting superpower to vote against conviction when articles of impeachment were presented in 2019 and 2021. After barely surviving the first term, full of bribery, quid pro quos, and other high crimes and misdemeanors, one can surmise in a declaration of loyalty to party, when the November 2024 general election came around, the lawmakers who voted against those convictions in the impeachment probably also cast their vote once again for the reckless autocrat loving individual. But I didn't vote for this. That's what the lawmakers and many are saying right now. That's the common theme. But you didn't vote for this, really? Are you sure? Let's see. The federal impeachment process is one by which the House of Representatives charges the President of the United States, Vice President, or another civil federal officer for alleged misconduct. The House can impeach an individual with a majority of its present members. If at least 2/3 of the senators, once it reaches the Senate, if they, 2/3 of them that are present, vote for conviction, the president is removed from office and replaced with the vice president. The decision of the Senate cannot be appealed to the federal courts. After leaving office, the former president may still be prosecuted for their alleged misconduct. What you're seeing on this screen is an example, literally a 6-step process that's pretty much the crust of how the federal impeachment process works. I've just described it. There's an act that occurs. It's one of treason, bribery, high crimes, or misdemeanors. Then there's an inquiry. A member or several members from the House of Representatives can present that inquiry officially. Then it moves to a hearing with the House Judiciary Committee, and the committee determines if there is enough evidence to present and pursue articles or one article of impeachment. The process, as you can see there in yellow, the process ends at this point if the inquiry does not reveal sufficient evidence. But if it does, it goes forward for a vote in the House. All 435 members vote with a majority 218. That's at least 50, greater than 50%. The president is impeached. Now, the process could end here if the majority vote is not reached in favor of impeachment. But if the process moves forward, that's what you see in between step 4 and 5, that is impeachment. And then a trial is underway or commences in the Senate, and the House then appoints members of the Senate to hold the trial. Supreme Court Chief Justice presides. And then here's where the 2/3 vote comes in. This is a critical moment. This was critical. I touched upon it at the onset of this episode, where 2/3 of the vote must be reached in order to convict. Otherwise, the person who's been brought up through the articles for impeachment would receive an acquittal. The process obviously ends if the 2/3 vote, 67, are not reached for a conviction. Should there be a conviction? Not common, but should there be? The bill is assigned to a committee for research and discussion, and they convict, and the president could then be removed. So let me just go through real quick before I pop in and go further, using a bit of historical context for your awareness. Only 3 presidents have been impeached. Andrew Johnson, 1868, Bill Clinton, 1998, and the current occupant of the White House twice in 2019 and 2021. One president, Richard Nixon, resigned his office in 1974 when it became clear that he would be impeached by the House and likely convicted by the Senate. Nixon was pardoned for his alleged misconduct by his successor, Gerald Ford. The now 34-count convicted felon is the only president to be impeached twice. One in 2019 for abuse of power and obstruction of justice in connection with the Ukraine scandal, and once in 2021 for incitement of insurrection in connection with the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol by a violent mob of his supporters. Both impeachments resulted in acquittal in the Senate. I'll repeat that. Both impeachments resulted in an acquittal in the Senate. More insight is coming. I said that twice for a reason, because that was a moment in time when there was clearly enough evidence prior to what we are experiencing, witnessing, and enduring in this present day. Both impeachments resulted in an acquittal from the Senate. But I didn't vote for this, right? Really? Those 6 words are being uttered more often than ever. The question I challenge anyone to answer who expected something other than unbridled lawlessness from the first ever individual entering the White House as a convicted felon is this: why does the ugly face of injustice, lack of due process, and any other inequity, why do they become a problem for some only when what you did not vote for finds itself threatening to take up personal residence with you? Why is it not an issue until it knocks on your door? So this is the moment where I quote Mamie Till Mobley, the mother of Emmett Till. Mamie stated, upon the death and murder of her son, Emmett, when anything happens to any of us, anywhere in the world, it had better be the business of us all. Don't wait until it knocks on your door because that doesn't affect you, or I don't have a child with those issues, or I know that my child is not, going to pick up a gun. When it affects any of us anywhere in the world, it had better be the business of us all. Why? Because when we think unfortunate circumstances can and should only occur to one group of people, a specific ethnicity, class of people, the door opens to autocracy. And what is that? Autocracy is a form of government in which absolute power is held by the head of state, known as an autocrat. Autocracy includes some form of a monarchy, but all forms of dictatorship. Yes, viewers, this is what we are witnessing. The 34-count convicted felon is operating seemingly by puppet strings controlled by other autocrats around the world and his enablers within this administration. But remember, you didn't vote for this, right? Are you sure? Well, a recent video was circulating, or I think it's still circulating, of Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican senator from Alaska. While attending a leadership summit, she expressed what appears to be an authentic inner emotion that she and other colleagues feel, but they can't say out loud, according to her. So while speaking, Senator Murkowski states, "We're all afraid." The 4 words that have now been heard around the world. We are all afraid. I'm oftentimes anxious about using my voice because retaliation is real. Those are the words from a sitting senator, dare I say, not only for her, but on behalf of many in our current Congress. Let's take a look at what was actually said by Senator Lisa Murkowski.
Part of what I have been doing with my team is just trying to listen as carefully as I can to what is happening and how it is happening and the impacts it is having on the ground. And we're honest up front in saying we don't have all the answers, but we're trying to unlock at different opportunities and in different ways as much as we can. And it is as hard as anything that I have been engaged in the 20 plus years I've been in the Senate.
What do you have to say to people who are afraid or who represent people who are afraid?
We are all afraid. Okay. It's quite a statement. But we are we're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly I have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation is real, and that's not right. But that's what you've asked me to do. And so I'm going to use my voice to the best of my ability. And sometimes it will be viewed in a way that, well, that's pretty confrontational. And other times it's going to be using my mother's charm that I learned as a young girl, and in direct communication with those that I've made relationships with, and am able to affect some change that way. But I've got to figure out how I can do my best to help the many who are so anxious and are so afraid. Part of what
Well, we're living in a time, in a place where I've certainly not been here before, as stated by Senator Lisa Murkowski, and that is fact. We are. And here's why I shared the information about the impeachment process earlier in this episode. Senator Murkowski and 51 Republican colleagues voted against conviction on abuse of power, the very thing that's happening right now. She and 51 Republican colleagues voted against conviction and obstruction of Congress articles during that impeachment in 2019. Senator Mitt Romney was the only Republican to break with his party, and he joined all 47 Democrats in the Senate with a yes vote for conviction. Now, that abuse of power has been exacerbated, and suddenly we're all afraid, she says. Well, the time to be afraid might have been midway through the first term. Midway. That was a full 2 years before the mob of insurrectionists scaled the walls of the Capitol like geckos and spiders. Following a conviction on the articles of impeachment, although not common, I shared this earlier, the party's leader could have been removed from office and ineligible to run for office of president again, according to Article 1, Section 3 and Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. In the history of the United States, only 8 officials, all federal judges, have been removed from office after impeachment. I guess the senators, the 52 of them, to include Lisa Murkowski, couldn't bear to vote for conviction. They just didn't want to make history for standing on behalf of democracy and loyalty to the Constitution. Now, it's worth noting, let's give a little credit where credit is due, that when a second opportunity to convict their party's leader arrived, Murkowski did join 6 other Republicans and all 50 Senate Democrats in voting to convict on the article of inciting an insurrection. However, that vote fell 10 short of the 2/3 required, 67, 2/3 vote to convict. And on February 13th, 2021, the Senate voted to acquit, once again, now the insurrection provocateur. With 2 impeachments and 0 convictions on board, the train of outright lawlessness left the station. It barreled its way straight to the Supreme Court, who ruled on July 1st, 2024, in a 6-3 decision that presidents have absolute immunity for acts committed as president within their core constitutional purview. They have at least presumption of immunity for official acts within the outer perimeter of their official responsibility and no immunity for unofficial acts. Imagine this. Hear me good. Imagine if the now afraid elected congressmen had voted to convict on abuse of power and obstruction of Congress in 2019. Maybe using their fear could have been a proactive measure against what we are experiencing today, which is a daily threat of a constitutional crisis. But remember, they didn't vote for this. Really? Are you sure? As an elected official, when power, position, and the need to remain relevant override sound judgment and the ability to authentically represent the people who granted you their vote, one might surmise that the more honorable thing to do would be to resign. I know I've stated this before, and I'm going to share it again because it bears repeating as often as I can, and that is this. Today's elections require a different kind of voter. Today's voters must be educated and engaged on every level in every election. Our vote matters, but as we can see, who is granted our vote is the lifeline of democracy. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Evidently You're Unaware. Remember, it is no longer acceptable or safe to live in ignorance. You just can't do it. It's important. And this information is designed to elevate your awareness. I simply today wanted to be sure that you understood that there were things already in place. The impact of our decisions and who receives our vote must be important because it has impact on our lives and the lives of others. No individual is perfect, but time is up for sending just anybody to our city's council, the mayor's office, the state's Congress, the United States of America, the Congress there, and every elected office in between, if given another opportunity. And I say that with genuine concern. If given another opportunity, someone who earned convictions on 34 felony counts should present a bright red stoplight to your face and a loud red siren in your ear. The intentional turmoil that has been unleashed by the current administration can indeed rest, at least in part, on the shoulders of the 77,303,573 people who voted for the 34 count convicted felon, and yes, the 89,278,948 who didn't bother to show up. But may you stand in greater awareness that there was a time before the November 2024 general election. There were consequences already in motion for those who voted, Republican senators, who voted in those two impeachment trials. Lawmakers, elected congressmen were provided ample evidence and the opportunity to take a firm stance for democracy on behalf of their constituents against the mutiny we are witnessing and experiencing today. Their fear opened the door. Comment. Be sure that you inbox me at Andrea@strategicblueprint.info. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Blue Sky at thesuccessfuldiva.bsky.social.
You're Unaware is a platform dedicated to shining light upon various issues, topics, circumstances, and people who influence our lives The information provided should not be considered advice for legal, health, investments, or the endorsement of an individual or group. Neither the host nor the guest of Evidently You're Unaware is responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from using the information shared within this podcast. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Evidently You're Unaware.